Welcome to our weekly new global media talk show. Today is February 18, Gambian Independence Day. So today we're gonna briefly talk about our independence and then talk about the national dialogue, which is historical. First time in the Gambia, the nation came together and then tried to talk about issues and issues that matters to everyone, including our political parties. So we are here with our guest, Dr. Omar Cherno Omar Bari. Dr. Bari, you are not new to the Gambians. Welcome on board.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sawaneh. It's a great pleasure to really join you here today.
Thank you.
And also congratulations for your program. I've not been able to follow all the streams, but I've been seeing the great things you've been doing, particularly recently when you had to meet one of the political parties in Senegal. That was great.
Thank you. And also, Famara, my co-host. Famara, welcome from Maryland.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sawaneh. Nice to be here again this week after missing a couple of shows.
Exactly. But Sam has your back. But Sam right now is in the Gambia. Hopefully he's watching as well. We're gonna be also joined by Safiatou Juf. She's also part of the National Dialogue Preparatory Committee. So she will join us shortly. And Miss Mboj, if you are watching, we miss you here as well. So you are in Denmark right now, but hopefully you can also join. So welcome. Let's briefly discuss our talked about independence. Today falls the Independence Day, 59 year. Some people are saying we had independence almost 60 years ago and still the nation is struggling. So can we just briefly talk about what independence means to us, and then had we meet the promise as a nation, and what is the meaning of Gambian independence as a whole, being liberated from colonialism and having as our own as a sustainable sovereign nation. What has transpired briefly to be where we are today. So either one of you can jump in.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, 18 February is a very important day for our country. This is the day we get our independence from the British that colonized us for many, many years. So we want to thank our forefathers who fought for this independence, and then for having ourselves as nation, as a sovereign nation. So it's a very important day for us. Of course, from 1965 to date, Gambia has been, doing our little bit contribution towards the development of our country. Of course, we are not there as we expect to be, but then, yes, we have achieved some progress. So having our own country, having our own independence is something, it's a big achievement. We should not underrate that, obviously. Yeah, so, I mean, February 18, we are not historians. Hopefully, if we got Hasum here, could have delved into, how the Gambia come about. Like you said, we need to know our history, how the independence was fought from the British, the achievements, and, of course, some of the challenges, we had in the past, or our forefathers had in the past to get Gambia as independent. So I think that history part would be very, very interesting. But so far, what we have seen so far from Sadaura Jawara, who led us to the independence, and then coming down to the former administration of Yahya Jammeh and now President Barrow, that's where we are now. And then listening to the president's speech today, I didn't know listen to it in the full speech, but he talked about a lot of issues today about the development projects that he is undertaking right now, including the road construction and, of course, the educational reform, and, of course, the security reform and, price increase of goods and services in the country, which is a big challenge coming out of COVID-19 and all those, inflation going around the world and all those things. So he mentioned a whole lot of things which are very challenging for our country. One would expect that after 59 years of independence, some of these challenges would have gone. But then, as a developing country, we're still struggling, and we are getting there. We're doing all the best we can with the support from our development partners, but also, also growing our own local economy is also very important as well. So I think progress is also, going on with the agriculture sector, the tourism, obviously, which are backbones for our national development, our GDP, and the fisheries, and all those important sectors of economy. So I think we still need to improve and work hard, and ensure that our natural resources that the country depends on for development and, of course, the livelihood of our citizens, we need to make sure that we protect those natural resources and focus on them, so that the country can, move faster and then catch up with the rest of the other African countries or even around the world that have also gained their independence from the British and other colonizers for many years back. So, Sawaneh, in short, basically, we're happy. We celebrate this day each day. And then, it is very important day for Gambia. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Famara, for summarizing that. Yes, yeah, independence, is so meaningful to us. But some people would say, what are we? Why would we celebrate independence if nothing has changed? If we haven't achieved so much, and then if we are still not, we probably are free after Jammeh left. When it comes to democracy, but some people would say economically we still are not free. So many Gambians are hungry. We haven't attained good, sustainable life. So why would we call ourselves independent? A country that has, been sovereign and then have independence. So it might be it's just a word, independence, but we are probably better off during colonialism than now. So some people might make that argument. Dr. Buddy, what do you think?
Yes, thank you very much. I also, first of all, thank all of you for giving me an opportunity to share my views about the independence in general, and later about most of what has transpired, in the margins of the independence this year, when we are celebrating 59 years of nationhood. Look, there are going to be two lenses to this. There is the view that questions whether we are truly independent. And there are a lot of arguments that can be associated to that to justify, to question self-independence for Africa. And there's the other view that also says, and supports the fact that, we are independent. So I'm going to try to delve in both briefly. In the first premise, are we independent? Here you will have to define truly what you mean by independence, because independence for anybody means you are not dependent any longer on any form of support. You are able and capable of handling matters on your own. And matters here is defined in all areas. In the case of nation, means you are politically independent. There is no influence outside that justifies how you live and how you work, and that dictates your political independence. And socio-economically also, you are independent because there is no, you don't depend on somebody or something to be able to survive. You depend on your own efforts, on your own products, on your own energy, on your own creativity, innovation, whatever you want to call it, to be able to sustain yourself. It comes from inside going outside, it's demonstrated. Now, from that perspective, if you look at the issue of our states, African states, when you say we are independent, then you start questioning whether truly we are. Now, if you assume, having been given our opportunity to lead ourselves, to have our own presidents, to stake elections where we want it, and have our own government run our governments, and by our own people representing us, to that extent, yes, we are independent because we are the ones there who are in government. We are the ones who have our own leaders leading our own countries. However, if you want to question the other side, how economically independent are we? How politically independent are we? Then you start raising questions. Why? Because most of the states we are talking about continue to have a very strong link. That is that umbilical cord that should have been severed after we had what we call self-rule. Is unfortunately not completely severed. Because, just to tell you, for example, we continue to live by taking loans to be able to manage our affairs. These loans are premised on the fact that we are in good standing with our former colonial masters. That is what gives us a guarantee that we can take these loans. So technically what it means, our former colonial masters stand proxy for us to take those loans. In the case of the Francophone countries, they have their own what we call reserve, their own reserves in the banks of France. That's where they are lodged. And they now dictate how these people will be able to take a loan to develop their countries. And those loans keep increasing and the interest keep increasing. And consequently, what happens, you start tying yourself around a rope for which you find very difficult to release yourself. So economically or financially, you still have to depend on your former colonial master to be able to survive. So is that independence? I leave that question to us to determine. The second thing, now that also applies to the British colonial, former British colonial, countries. The same thing applies. So the other thing now is about economic independence. Today we are taking loans. I'm sure anybody who has studied our budget will know that wherever we get $100 that is raised, 60 of that dollars is going to be given to loan repayment. You know, whether it's domestic loan, whether it's international loan, it will go. And then secondly, before we increase salaries, before we increase the budget, etc., whatever we do, we have to consult the International Monetary Fund, the IMF, who have their office based within even the Ministry of Finance, who have a say in the way in our budgetary decisions. Now, if that is independence, I start questioning it. So that is also a thing to think about, to reflect about, right? And then the third thing is that we continue to import heavily for a country like the Gambia to be able to survive. If we were a country that had natural resources, we still find it difficult for many countries with natural resources to really explore their natural resources. Guinea-Conakry, for example, they have water enough to create a dam that could have electrified the whole of Guinea-Conakry and even most of the part of West Africa. They have a forest that could have fed the whole of the country without them importing anything, be it fruits, be it food, etc. They have enough water, rivers inside the country to be able to feed them in fish. They could have enough land, arable land, to cultivate and also feed, animals, so that they could do horticulture, they could do poultry farming, they could do anything. Yet, even with their resources, like the bauxite they have, the diamonds they have, the gold they have, and any other resources for which probably we don't even know of, all of these are being exploited at the moment, taken away by foreign companies, and leaving little improvement in their wake, and naturally destroying the landscape, destroying cities, the villages, and then the country continues to have bad roads, bad electricity, little potable water, etc. I mean, you start questioning yourself whether you are truly independent. Because if you are independent, all those resources should be your own management. The conditions laid to exploit them should be in your benefit. And also you have a lot of other benefits that you can gain in ensuring the livelihoods of the people are improved, especially when all of those resources are at your beck and call and they are yours. So yes, when you question independence on one side, you start questioning, making a big question mark. Are we truly independent? It's a very important question after 59 years of self-rule. The other part now is that, yes, look, to an extent, we have our own decision makers. We have our own politics. We have our own politicians. We control our education. Are we providing appropriate education to improve our own people? We are the ones responsible for our economy. Are we doing enough internal production to sustain and then fight against poverty? Are we putting in necessary institutions in our country to strengthen our democracy, to strengthen our governance, to improve our development? You see, we have to learn from other countries that did this. That's why it is not shameful at all to compare ourselves with Singapore. It's not shameful to compare ourselves with South Korea, countries that were very, very poor in the time when we were giving ourselves rule.
Right.
So why are those people very advanced countries today that are particularly even categorized as first countries, meaning very developed countries, while we are still struggling? While we are still struggling to get out of our poverty, while we are still struggling to do our proper enough production to feed our people, to have what we call the type of economic, social, cultural, political independence that we deserve, in which no other authority shall dictate the way we live, and we don't have to depend on anybody's economy to guarantee us to survive. So yes, questioning our independence, a very important debate.
Thank you. Thank you. And I'm so this shouldn't be like being political. It has nothing to do with political views, but the fact that we as a nation hold this responsibility that we haven't met the expectation as an independent state. Because if we complain, the complaint was Africans in Addis Ababa. I remember with Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, the complaint was that African needs to manage their own affairs. Africa need to be liberated. We blame the colonial masters, but we're still blaming them after 59 years. And I even had a post on, on the platform that somebody was, everything political masters. How can you be free? How can you have your liberation, even if you are left with nothing? And for 59 years, you should be able to do something. So Africa is not poor, Kwame Nkrumah said. It's Africans that are poor. So that has a meaning. That means all what we need is here. It's just that we are poor in the sense that we don't have the mindset or the creativity or the will or the mannerism, to be able to make what we have, make use of it. A white man once mentioned to me here, you guys come to my country, you guys come to our country, right? Because you want to, have a greener pasture. Guess what happened? If you guys all come here and stay here and we go back to your country, 10, 15 years, you're gonna mess up everything here and you're gonna come back to Africa to get a greener pasture where we are. So he told me point blank, it's not because you don't have it, it's because you guys don't know how or don't have, what it takes to make your place better. And that is true. If you look at the history of the West, they don't have all what we had. They went and looked for it and built it. Imagine if they had it, what are we going to be talking about? If they were in Africa with the mindset, the political will, the mannerism, the attitude, they would have been twice bigger than where they are today. So we are blessed, but it looks like we have it and we don't. And Putin also said that what Africa has can feed the whole Africa until end of time. He said that a couple of years ago. All these leaders are talking to us, but our leaders, ourselves, we have still not seen. I posted on my Facebook page that Africa has all what it has instead of looking on the other side. And they said, somebody told me, show us, we can't see it. So people still now, we are in denial. Somebody posted and say, come and show us because we cannot see it. That's why we're going to Europe and other places. So what I'm trying to say here is that we claim that we need freedom, we need independence during Kwame Nkrumah's time in their meeting in Addis Ababa. Now we have all of that. We are still struggling. So we need to ask ourselves, are we truly is it the independence that was the issue? Or is it us who are the issue? And that reminds me, again, Kwame Nkrumah at that age in the 60s, asking himself that Africa is not poor, it's Africans that are poor. I still, pondered that in my mind, why are we poor Africans? Why? Not our continent. So that is something that I just want to put out.
Yeah, with the permission of Mr. Drammeh, I will probably just jump in there for a bit. You see, I think the whole issue is about, it's much easier. I've worked for government. It's much easier sometimes when someone is not in government to have a very good perception of how things might work. But you see, there are also a lot of theories out there that are, look, first of all, the attitude of the African is a question. I agree with you. That one, I will not dispute it. Having worked with central government, I've realized that the attitude of most of the civil servants is not helping in our development strides. And this is not new in Gambia. It is also something you will find replicated in many of the African countries. Is it because we are lackadaisical in nature? Is it because we are lazy, we don't work? We are not like the Chinese, the Taiwanese, the Koreans, who are very hardworking, who complain little when government imposes things on them. That's one part of the story. And that argument can be taken further to say, we also create our own monsters. Certainly, if you have a leader who is willing to work and finds his own people are not willing to work, it becomes a war. And that war can continue to be a war that will lead to a point where the leader becomes a monster himself. He's crafted, he's modeled according to the people's wish, according to the people's attitude, and according to the people's perception of things. And you cannot escape that, unfortunately. Is that because our education system has failed us? Do we have to resolve this in our education system? Yes, as an educationist, I will say that there is a lot to question our education too. If you go to Europe, America, etc., too, I mean, there is a sense of nationalism, of patriotism instilled in the children as early as they are young, to understand what it means to defend a nation, to defend the state, to defend the country, to fight for the country. Some will not agree all the time, but that is a minimal group. The larger group always feel that they defend this thought. I mean, you've been in Europe all these years. I've been there myself. I know what it means when it comes to defending your nation. You might have these disagreements, amongst yourselves, but when it comes to the nation itself, you will all be together and fight for its survival, fight for its progress, fight for its prosperity, and work hard for it. Yes, you will claim your right, but did you not stop you working hard? I mean, recalcitrance can be here and there. But in the case of Africa in general, the unfortunate thing is that we still have lost that what we call that kind of attitude, mental attitude or mindset to understand that country comes first in most cases, in this case. And fighting for its prosperity is in our own hands. We are the ones who should determine our future, who should determine our destiny, who should shape it up against all odds. And in that process, we will have enemies, but those enemies are not going to overshadow us. We have to define who we are. We have to fight who we are and not borrow certain concepts, not borrow certain attitudes, not borrow certain programs, educational programs that might not fit our context, that might not fit our way of life. And that is the reality. Unfortunately, until we get to that point, we will still have a big challenge in our development strides. But this is a very open debate. It can be debated all year round. We will still have different opinions coming up and opposition points coming up.
Thank you. Famara, do you have anything to add to that before we jump into the national dialogue? We can hear you. You are muted.
Yeah, surely. Yeah, I say, like Dr. said, it's an open debate. We can debate it all year round. But like you said, Dr. Krumah said, Africa is not poor. It is the Africans that are poor. And that is very true because we have resources. But the thing is, we cannot exploit those resources, to like a final product or finished product. For example, if we have oil, for example, in Africa or in the Gambia, for example, all right? And we don't have the capacity, we don't have the resource to turn that oil into a finished product that could benefit the country. So the resources might be available, but the capacity is not there. The knowledge is not there to process, or even the financial resource is not there to process that natural resources into something that could be beneficial to the country. So this is why I think in that perspective, yes, Africa is not poor. It is the Africans that are poor because we don't have that capacity. So this is why we have to, go back to the international community, the countries that are richer, either we get loans from them or either we bring them in where they do that service for us to turn this natural resource into something that is very useful. In the end, we share the money or the resources with them because they bring all their expertise, because they have the trained and qualified people who are, expertise in those areas, to utilize those natural resources for them to be beneficial for us. So in the end, it is kind of like a SCR basis. In fact, they might even take a bigger, percentage of the proceeds from that natural resources, because they are bringing in their equipment, their material, their expertise, and also helping us to sell or to buy, to sell those products. So that could be very true. But like things like, fisheries, for example, which we all depend on. And we have seen, for example, the Gambia, our fisheries sector is something very important for us to develop our nation. And then we have also seen the fishing agreements that we had with international community, and of course, even in the sub-region, like in even our close to neighbor Senegal, we have some fisheries agreement with them, where Senegalese can come and utilize or fishing in our community, in our country. But also the European Union and the EU countries are also after the fish resources that we have in our country, But how we negotiate those fisheries agreements as well is sometimes what is not allowing us to get the full, potentials of those resources. Like the EU, for example, we have a fishing agreement with them, with the high value fisheries, where they give us some, money like, is it 550,000 euro every year, out of those fishing agreements. So it is something that we have to, look at when we are negotiating these agreements, for the benefit of the country, so we can get what it takes to develop our country. And then, but anyway, the EU is interested in the high value fisheries. You're talking about the tunas, the salmoninas, and all those kind of species that are very highly valuable fish in the European market. But if you look at the fisheries that we depend on for our own livelihood, the community depend on, or the citizens depend on, so we need to utilize those resources as well. Make sure, the people are getting the best we need from those fisheries resources for our own livelihood. But at the same time, we can also process it. Of course, we have these fish meal factories in the country that are also exploiting those fish species to turn it out to fish oil and fish meal, to feed the pigs in outside the country. But now, if we reach at a point where those industries are competing with the local industry to the point where our own livelihood is at risk, then that is not also sustainable. So we have to look into that. We have to balance it in a way where we will not compromise our own livelihoods, but at the same time try to get something out of it that will move our country, since the fishing is a very important sector for the community. So what Kwame Nkrumah said, it is very true. We are not poor as a continent, but we are poor as citizens of that continent, because the resources that we have, we are not been managing them properly to the best of our interests. So it is something that, like Dr. said, we can debate for. It is very debatable. We can debate it for quite a long time, and we'll still have, for and against why we are still not independent. Yeah.
Thank you, Famara, for that analysis. We have our sister here, Safia Jup. Safia also is part of the National Dialogue Preparatory Committee, together with Dr. Bari. So, Safia, welcome.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Very good, very
Wa
good.
alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Very good. So we have a mentor here, Dr. Bari.
Yes,
Definitely.
I'm so happy to share a platform with Professor Barry, and yeah, he has touched certain areas that I believe that Gambia as a whole, Africa, is not yet fully independent. And therefore, let me introduce myself once again. I am Safiatu, known by Nakala Poet. And Alhamdulillah, I was here on this same platform to share some of my personal journey. And yeah, it's very interesting to be here again on this particular topic.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Before we transition to National Dialogue, which you are part of the preparatory committee as well, with Dr. Body, if you have anything to say about our independence, today is the 59 independence, and how far we came, have we Have the expectation been met? Are we truly independent and so forth? You can throw a few words before we transition to that.
Looking at the system of the Gambia, I guess there is progress. Back then, the way of govern, being in the 22 years of Yajame system, that is the dictatorship, and looking at compared to what our recent president is trying to implement, but I guess there is an improvement in the way he is governing, in terms of democracy, in terms of giving us our rights. I can say he's trying to fill certain gaps in terms of education, infrastructure wise. To be quite honest, our government is really trying, if compared to our 30 years of rule by Jawara, and then again Drammeh, and presently Adam Barrow.
Okay, so would you blame our problems on the colonial masters, being that we have been free
I
for
don't believe
59
right
years?
now we should blame our colonial masters, because majority of the system now is controlled by Gambians. We have to look at the country interests, then blaming the outsiders, whom I believe, yes, they have built in a system that is very, very jealous, because I often say that Gambia is not fully independent because of the kind of an education system that we had. That I believe we still need to improve on it. But the way of governing that is often been on the side of loan, which is something really not improved, I can say. So we need to look at it again, and see how best we can avoid these loans that would actually make us independent fully to run our government as we wish. Because the more we depend on the loan, for us to cut off that chain of slavery will be very, very difficult. So I guess the government of the Gambia should work on that aspect of having their government independently functions, as Doctor said, because there are certain areas that obviously you could tell that without their grants, we cannot move the country the way we want it. And they said a hand that is feeding you, it will be difficult for you to boycott or give your back to that individual. Because when often you get to a stage whereas okay, you are stuck. I mean, you're gonna go back to the individual, and they will have principles, laws that they will have to attach to it, which I believe will not be in the interest of the Gambians. It will favor them more than the government itself.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think
So
Dr. Very much. Go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, so I wrote a poem even pertaining the system of rule that we have in Africa. I believe the African leaders can do something about this, and that is changing their ways of governing, try to sit up and discourse among themselves again, and see how best we can minimize the loan and move the country to another stage. Okay, in one of my poems, when I talk about the I am 58, because thereupon I try to bring in issues of slavery, how they enslave us, and why I believe that still now the mentality is still affecting our system, and ways to escape in such kind of a condition. And I said, at due point, our eyes are full of views. A morning bird greets me from the flora and fauna mouth of the river Gambia. Then I said, standing tall in the forest, opening the pages of our independence. A young boy ran a close knuckle bend, then struggled to read our history. So as Africans, researchers are saying, okay, there are some part of our history that has been hidden from us. So archaeologists are working very hard right now to bring that together, to actually work onto the history part of Africa that we believe they did that for a purpose so that we will not have a sense of direction, ways that we can do with our people to get out of poverty. Because one aspect of the system is the education system, which I'm always against it, and that is only theory, no practical. And mode of specialization is very, very late. You will start your specialization in the latest, that is if you are in the university, that I believe all these things can be implemented from the grassroots, nursery level coming up, so that our people can understand what it means to get a system that will translate and move the young people into another sense of direction. And I said, sadness covers his face for being neglected. Edward Francis Small, which I recall him, born in January 1891, at the lips of Bathurst. In the sacred blessings of his rich mind, he established his strong faith that led him to lose his job, but planted his flower beds, and his tree continues to grow. Attended a conference in 1920 that changed the voice of our freedom. So all these people that had played a role into our freedom, we have to look at what kind of a system that they were in, and what do they actually want then in the Gambia, the ruling system, how they want it to flourish to another state. So if we really want to break the chain of slavery, we have to look back into the history of the Gambia, the people that were there with their mindsets and concepts. What do they have that we believe we can use to penetrate the modern system today? I guess the poem is a little bit long, but I do touch on the history, Gambia then, today, and what I believe it could be a very good solution for us to improve in our way of governance. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for bringing the poetic part of it and relating it to the situation that we are talking about. Independence, Drammeh time was because people will come and say that we don't have any independence, because we're still, in dictatorship and so forth. Now that we have New Gambia,
Democratic system.
yes, but still, financially or economically, we are not liberated. And you can give all the credit to the current government in any way or shape or form for at least, maintaining that New Gambia, freedom, people's having, there are ways to talk in and share ideas and media freedom and so forth. But if you're not financially equipped, if you're not financially free, people are going to bed hungry, and people are struggling. There is a lot of insecurity. People are robbing people. We are still not independent. We are not still free. So this is the argument being based. And I hope, based on that, I hope you guys have probably mentioned that in our the dialogue with the national dialogue. That's what we are transitioning. Which which,
The national dialogue was very interesting because many issues were discussed.
right.
That I believe if the government of the Gambia work on it and implement those areas, there's a lot I believe we can achieve.
Right. I'm coming there, right. I'm coming to that right now. They said that we are good at ideas. If you Gambians as a nature, you bring us together. We are great. We are so brilliant, to put tons of ideas together. But as soon as we walk away from that, everything is gone through the roof. Why? Because why? And then this has been, and Dr. Barry, you probably could even also talk more about this, because this has been the history of our existence. Remember the think tank when this new government came in? The think tank group?
Yes.
Okay,
You remember the
great
thing.
idea. Great idea. And many diasporans have even subscribed to that. That went that went over the roof. Remember the asset this declaration idea? Brilliant idea.
Yes.
You come to office, you declare your asset, you go it out, you declare it. The assessment people, they assist it, they evaluate it towards what you have made or what you're supposed to be making in the office. Then you will be, accountable. You will be accountable of everything that transpires. Went off the roof. And another idea that I even proposed, at Wisconsin when I went to give a speech there, invited by Bach Samba, Bach Samba, what's the last name? Bach Samba. Okay, I forgot the last name. But Bach, he's a councilor there. He's a city council there. The idea of creating a database, an online database, to gather knowledge, to gather information about all the diasporans who have education, experience, and so forth, a database that could be used by the government to tap into diasporans and see what are they capable of. And this will even bring back, knowledge and resources back to the country. That was never also put in place. So now diasporans, resources in terms of contribution towards the country has not been tapped in because we don't have a database of people like Famara, people like Sam, people like the experiences, and then that could even be a resource for them to be pulled into the country and then given opportunity to serve. And some can even serve on a voluntary basis even. You don't even have to be paid 9 to 5. People are willing to help their nation, but it's not been tapped into. All those ideas went over the roof. So you guys in this committee, the dialogue committee, that's not dialogue, I just want to ask you guys, do you think this idea of Gambians, having great minds and great ideas are coming together, which we did this last couple of days, do you think it's all going to be the same way, out of the window in the next coming year? Or do you think this one definitely would materialize, would be different, and we will definitely get results? And
Yes.
that's one question. And then the second thing is, I will just let you guys dive in also to tell us what has transpired, the whole thing. And do you believe in the system? Has it been fair to everybody? Is it political? Is there a political motive behind this? Be that the election is just couple of years prior, and why now? Why not 2006, 17, 2018, 2019, and all of that? So it's another question to be asked. Our job is to decipher everything and make everything out so that as a nation, we can definitely comfortable to buy into something like this. It was beautiful. I can trust me. I wish I was there. So this is one thing that I want to ask you. So I will allow Famara to also come because you Dr. Barry and Safia to you guys are part of the preparatory committee. So at this point we are here to ask. We'll be asking, and you guys will be telling us. So Famara, if you have anything to ask them, then you can ask as well. But those are the areas that I want to bring out.
Yeah, I think those areas you asked are very good questions to start with. I also want to welcome Safia on the platform. So I think we'll look forward to hearing from them. Then from there on, we can ask some extra questions. The thematic areas that they have chosen. We would like to know, how did they come to that thematic areas as well? Because I was expecting to hear something on, because when you talk about national dialogue, there are a lot of issues going on in our country. I think those needs to be captured. Like I'm an environmentalist, and I know that there are a lot of issues going on in our country that's also impacting on our social life. It's impacting on how conflicts within ourselves, like I know the land area has been, talked about. I think in one of the introductory remarks, I think the president mentioned about the land issues, and I think also Hamad Ba also mentioned about land. But when you look at the natural resources, especially the fisheries, we're talking about the environmental protection, because environment is cross-cutting. When you don't have environmental sustainability, it impacts on our livelihoods. It also impacts on agriculture, especially in the wake of climate change. So as we go along, maybe I'll ask those questions as we go along, and then hear from Safia and Professor Barry, about the national dialogue and how it all came about, and what has been done behind the scene that we have not heard from, the platform. So hopefully that will give us an idea like what extra questions to ask. So thank you.
Thank you. So we give you guys the floor. I mean, Dr. Bari and Sophia, you guys can come in. I think you can.
Okay. I guess a doctor could will delve into detailed information of that aspect. But what I can say is that I believe the people that they have chosen are very, very important individuals in the Gambia. And looking at the setup and how we came up to the conclusions of the 6 thematic areas that were treated during the program, with different stakeholders coming up to make a suggestion on certain issues, which are very, very alarming in the Gambia. And from there, we were divided into 6 different teams. Each team has been given a responsibility with the stakeholders to discourse on those issues. And we went on to having like 10 to 7, 8 different issues that they have been voted for. And out of that, we were able to arrive at only 5 points in each issue when it comes to the side of security, let's say press freedom, religious issues. All these 6 areas, 5 points were ticked as the main major things that the government is supposed to try and implement on that. And from there, we went to the main day, that is the 16th, to explain these areas to the people. I believe the government of the Gambia had opened their doors for the people to discuss with them and see how best we can come together to shape the Gambia in a better format. Right now, yes, we will have that naysayers saying that, okay, this is just a political reason, they will go later, but nothing will be implemented. But let's play our part. And if by all means they didn't do it, we can come back on Facebook and campaign against it. Because I don't believe that they will use us to come together, bring those type of people, leave everything that they're supposed to do, and then wake up one day refusing to implement the things that we have gathered on that platform. I'm gonna tell you, we're gonna come back on Facebook and we're gonna rebel against it, because that shows this is the last chance for them. Because looking at the constitutional review, the laws that were being reviewed and everything, they didn't implement it still. But I believe there's something that they can do to make this one happen, so that people can trust the system again. Because there are a lot of people who today believe that they want to score political points from this, from their opponents. And I told them, let's give them the benefit of the doubt and see what could come out of it. And the likes of Dr. Barry executives in the group, they make an emphasis on making sure that these areas, thematic areas that had been discussed, government will do something about it. And I have great respect and trust in them. Yeah, that is the preparatory team. And if nothing happened, they will do something about it. So I can give the floor to Doctor to explain into details
Thank you.
what really happened.
Thank you. Before we go to Doctor, you mentioned something. We can come to Facebook and rebel against them. Yeah, that's one thing that could happen, but I don't think that could even change anything when they want to do what they want to do.
We have access to the office, so we will find solution and see how best we can table things out to discuss with them again towards this if it doesn't happen at all.
Did you guys
But I
consider,
believe let's give them the benefit of the doubt. I believe the government is ready to do something.
right? Do you guys think that these people have the financial resources to do what are those suggestions are?
I'm not a financial expert, but due to certain issues that I have read, I guess the government will have something to finance this aspect of the implementation project. They cannot just jump and do these things when they don't have finance to do it. To me, it will not make sense to me. You cannot just jump and implement or call people on discussion when you don't have the funds.
Yeah. Let's allow Dr. Barry to comment now. He's in a hungry.
You are torturing my sister. You are torturing my sister. She cannot give you those answers. So you're just torturing her. Safi, you have done very well, really. For someone who's a layman in governance and how government works. So let me save you here. I think I have to first of all bring the context here. First of all, I think let us all acknowledge that anyone who calls for a national dialogue, whether it's genuine or not genuine, it behoves on us to respond. A national dialogue is like calling for a reconciliation between a husband and a wife who might have an issue. Might, I said, not necessarily have an issue. Because you see, in any relationship, there is always a possibility of tension. But in this case, it's far beyond that. It's about a national call. It's about us sitting down as stakeholders of nation building and discussing issues. Now, I'll come back to some of your questions to Safia, but let me just, as I said, bring everything to context. Last year, we had our first national dialogue forum. It was organized differently. I understood from the speeches that were provided yesterday on Friday that actually Ami Bojang Sissoho has always been spearheading this since 2018. But it was only last year that she was given the opportunity to organize a much smaller scale in which people were invited from the diaspora, like Professor Abdullah Sen, myself, independent scholars. I wasn't in government anymore. And a host of people from government to outside government, youths, female. You look at the composition, you find that they tried out their best to bring what we call equity in the representation. And even the religious representatives were the imams and the bishops who came and then all spoke on the need to support and promote nationhood. That was a catalyst. This year, they decided to approach it differently. Instead of just the dialogue, they decided that, in this case, it is the president himself, I understood, who said, we are going to organize it differently. I want to meet my political opponents, or let's say my political colleagues. So we can first sit and I will show them the program. I will introduce the concept to them and I will invite them to approve it. Now, let us be very specific. Let us be very specific. The 12th of February was an invitation to the heads of the political parties to endorse the concept of the national dialogue. And in endorsing it, they can highlight one or two issues that they think are very, very pertinent to take into consideration during the dialogue. So this is very important. They should first endorse that or go with the idea of the national dialogue, because it's a national dialogue. It's beyond partisanship, it's beyond politics. It's about a nation calling, and the sitting head of state is calling everyone to come and be part of it. But he saw fitting to begin by inviting the political heads first. Why? Because they are also the possible governments. They are what we call the shadow governments or governments in waiting. So naturally, their involvement is important. So that is what the concept of the 12 was. And all the political heads came, all their representatives, and they endorsed. Practically no one said there that the National Dialogue Forum was a bad idea. So because they all agreed it was a good idea, they did endorse it. And at the same time, they also raised their challenges or their problems or issues they felt should be focused, problems of focus.
Yeah.
The 14th allowed a possibility of inviting 20 participants from critical areas of the society, be it government, the MDAs, what we call the ministries, the departments, and the agencies. This composed of the executive, and also invited political party representatives and invited civil society and other stakeholders to come and sit again. And this time, under 6 thematic sub-teams, to propose 5 resolutions for each sub-teams. These sub-teams, to share it with the public, number 1 was the political environment for sustainable peace and stability. So that was the first group. They will all sit, discuss on 5, they can brainstorm, argue, whatever, but they come out with 5 resolutions among maybe thousands of resolutions, possible resolutions, for the government to focus on in the coming year. And the same applied to the second group, which was religious tolerance for social cohesion. The third group was ethnic diversity for national unity. And if you notice, all these first 3 are the potential problems in society. It's the issue of politics, it's the issue of religion, and the issue of ethnicity. We all know that these 3 have been pervading our discussions throughout as potential problems of conflict in our society. So what are the key resolutions that can create cohesion, that can create national law, that can create unity at national level, and tolerance, etc.? So these are the issues, the first 3. The last 3 now focus on other critical issues. And the fourth one was securing sovereignty, safeguarding stability, and well-being. And here, we are now talking about all our possible resources, and that's where Famara's point came up. The issue of safeguarding our resources, the issue of managing our resources, the issue of providing the adequate resources that are the rights of every individual in the community. This is where you have defense, food security, environmental security, energy security, and a host of other security-related issues. And then the 5th one was media and safeguarding the democratic space. And here we talk of media allowing possibilities of cooperating, not with government per se, but cooperating at national level to promote the dissemination of information, the provision of news at the right time, but also engage government to be transparent enough to provide the right information, etc., etc. But at the same time, also talk about hate speech, possible conflicts that can come from the media. And then the number 6 is irregular migration and youth empowerment. Initially, it was in fact empowerment. Now, irregular migration is a very key issue that was highlighted and therefore given prominence, because it is one of the major critical issues today that is affecting our youth. But empowerment was meant to be more open instead of just youth empowerment. It was supposed to have been empowerment of women, empowerment of the youth, meaning education, giving them resources, support, training, etc., so that they would be given the opportunity to prosper, to grow in this country, but also to get adequate support that is needed for sustainability and for economic development. So these were the 5 very important key sub-themes. So on the 14th, they met, and they came out with 30 resolutions. So once they got their 30 resolutions, or what we call recommendations, we were now required to meet on Friday. And this time we also invite 500 people to come, and they will all sit, and they will now be allowed to discuss practically on those 30 teams. If they have additional ones, they can bring them up. If they want to strengthen the teams, they can bring them up. So this was discussed, presided over by the president in the first half of the day, and in the second half, presided over by the organizing committee. Now, the national dialogue is never enough in one day. So the idea now, after this one, is to go to the grassroots. There is what we call a post-national dialogue program. First, we will have to go to the regions again. You will now start asking, why did we not start with the regions come up? It could be a bottom-up approach. That's fine. But this has become a top-down approach, which can be effective in its own strategic way. Why? Because now that you have your 6 thematic group areas, you can focus on ensuring these areas are sold to the nation and listen also to their reaction in the other areas. Now, if you look at these 6 thematic areas, they have highlighted most of the problems that pervade our discussions in the social media, in the media itself, among political party members, among critical society, civil society. These have been issues that have already been included in the National Development Plan, for which I was also a consultant in the area of education. And I know what it means, the YIRIWA that has recently been launched, where all these key critical areas have already been highlighted. So it means that it is within government program. So you might have about 85 to or almost 90% of them already within government policy. So then why the national dialogue? You will ask. Do we have the resources? Well, if it is part of the program, yes, the resources are already allocated in budget to cover them. What the national dialogue is doing now is picking them out to say, look, for this coming year, make sure that we focus on these ones as very important issues. You know, the issues of, for example, reform has been adequately discussed. Electoral reform, TRRs, how they call it, security sector reform, etc., etc. And then the issue of recommendations of the commissions, the issue of energy, ensuring people have adequate energy and water, potable water. The issue of security, people being secure, both at the borderlines or internally, for people not to feel that they are harmed or they can go about their business. The issue of creating an enabling environment for more prospering economic upliftment of the people. The issue of focusing on youth and women, etc., etc. The issue of curbing irregular migration. The issue of ensuring that people don't see now everything about ethnicity only or only about religion. Saying that religion is important, ethnicity is important, but it should not be sources of conflict in a country where people already have lived, within a border in which we all belong and are all nationals. So yes, these issues have been raised. Some of the recommendations might not have been in any of the policies of government. This has to be verified, or in the NDP, this has to be confirmed. But the post-dialogue is now, we bring out all these resolutions, the 30 ones, plus the ones that have additional ones that have been brought up, and we are going to look at them critically, divide them into their components. Some of them will go into legislature. It means they will have to go to the National Assembly for debate to make them laws, probably, like the issues of reforms, issues of the constitution, etc. Others will have to go into the executive, meaning that these are issues of implementation. They might have the resources already. If they don't, where can they get the resources if they can? If they cannot, how do they manage to now integrate it with other programs and then implement them? And others might have to do with the judiciary. For example, the issue of land was mentioned. A land court, a recommendation was made to have a land court because land issues are becoming now critical and eventually becoming problematic. And then, a crisis in the making. So this is why land issues now, we recommend strongly that because of their delay in courts, they will have to have what we call specialized courts responsible for land matters. And then we are not only talking about that, but we want to talk about specialized courts also responsible for key issues so that we can expedite, the judgment. So yes, it is a load of things that has happened during this national dialogue. Okay. Now the question is it all a facade? Is it all just done because the president wanted recognition? I will say I don't know. As one believer used to do during the time of the Prophet Muhammad, he went to kill in jihad, and then he caught this believer. He knows that this guy is, he's always against the Prophet, insulting him and everything. So he caught the guy, and he has to kill this guy so he can get the benefits. And the guy said, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah. Then the guy hesitated. Should I kill? Shouldn't I kill? He said, no, this guy is just faking it. And he killed the guy. And he went to the Prophet. And the Prophet asked him, what happened? And he explained. The Prophet said, have you caught his heart to decide whether he is genuine or not? And he kept quiet. He said, you might have killed a Muslim. And in that case, you are now already a problem. So if somebody is sitting president for the first time in history, says, I'm calling you all to come. I needed us to do a dialogue. I have problems. I want us all to join together. I want to listen to you. And then you just sit down and say, no, this is motivated by something else. And you don't know. Then you are not ready for a dialogue. You are not ready for nationhood. In my view, come and listen. You don't have to talk if you don't want to. But even after you listen, you might have an advice against the president to say, look, you are doing it this way, but I don't agree. Do it that way. It is an opportunity to tell the president what you feel. And that way, he will listen because he's not going to counteract you. At least for as much as we have seen, he has not taken any flaw to go against any political party for coming to say anything that they have said. They had the freedom. I'm sure you people have seen the videos. They had the freedom to say everything they wanted to say. And nobody was there to say, what you are saying is not true, what you are saying is wrong. So this is what I'm saying. When this kind of calls are made, whether it's a religious group that is calling for peace, whether it's an ethnic group calling for peace, whether it's a political group calling for peace, let us all come together. Let us listen to each other. At the end of the day, the country we belong to is ours. And it doesn't matter who sits in power. One day, that power will change, and somebody else will sit there. Who knows? It could be us too. And we might also want to make the same national call. So I'll stop there for a while.
Thank you. Wow, it's a lot. It's a lot. Thank you. I'm here spinning my head with all the things that you said. The only challenges here is that first, there are embedded things that you said. I don't know how those are categorized. Things like you mentioned constitutional review. You mentioned things like election reforms. How are they? Do they have a first of all, the Gambian, did you guys come with an idea and to build a database, public database where everything can be transpired? The reason why West has been very successful when it comes to governance and even elected officers, everything that transpires, right? Even budget, finance is available to public. Okay, when you do a campaign here, your campaign financing, how much you raise, who is paid what, everything has a public access. So does that come into a play anytime during the discussion? Because once those things,
Yes,
things very okay, those things all come to play. Okay.
Yes, one of the recommendations coming from the group 1 on political environment is that all parties now, the moment they begin their campaign or they begin their political activities before an election, must make sure that the sources of their funds are revealed, and that all their funds do not come from foreign investors, meaning that people who have probably no wish for the country, who are potential people who might change things to a model nepotism. But see, nepotism, or what we call patronage, is also a corruption act. What does that mean? Yes, Dr. Sawaneh wants to be a political party member, and he has the potential to win. I am a strong businessman from Taiwan or from Japan, and I have a lot of money, and I have some economic interest in the country. So I tell him, look, don't worry, I'm going to cover all your election costs. Or I'm going to buy you this, I'm going to do this for you. And I provide that to you. Tomorrow, when I come and ask for a favor, will you say no? The chances are you won't. And there, I've already bought you, meaning that I have used patronage to get your attention. So if you win, whatever I want, you will do it. And we have seen this in the past. So we are saying these are issues that have been recommended strongly to government to put in place. It might be part of the electoral reforms, so that in the electoral reforms, they will indicate there that all sources of support for political parties must be transparent and must be declared, so that people know where they're getting their money. And the idea is to ensure that political parties are not influenced. Remember, we all don't have money. To be honest, I mean, in Africa here, most of the politicians who are coming up here will be depending on Dr. Sawaneh giving them money. But if Dr. Sawaneh gives me money, he's in the US, even though he's a Gambian. If he gives me a big amount of my money for my campaign, and tomorrow he comes and say, nothing, laughter scholarship, why do you think I will say no? I find a way to get Dr. Sawaneh's son to get a scholarship. If he asks me things that are illegal, should I say no? So this is the reason why it's difficult sometimes to take out that patronage from corruption, because that's particularly what happens. Most of the political parties don't have the means. Maybe the only ones that might probably be able to use of resources are those who are in power. Why? Because they have the resources of the state to use. Now, whether that is also wrong or right should probably be spelled out in the electoral reforms. So what I'm just driving is that as we keep moving on, we might have to keep improving our state structures and institutions to ensure all these are improved. Yes.
But I'm glad that you mentioned that, because that should also happen to our leaders, especially our presidents, because they do have people sponsored. There are places, there are interests. Like, let's say Econ electrified President Barrow's place. Would Econ want to do a business in the Gambia? Would President Barrow tell him no? So this applies not only to political parties, but also to governments, to leaders that we have in place. So if you guys gonna craft this, make sure everything is tapped into, not only political parties or sponsors outside. And another thing that I see in US here, which you guys should tap into this, and I'm glad that this is a process as it goes along. People who don't have the political muscles must have assistance. You cannot have somebody running for office and then they can raise certain amount, but they should be having some kind of matching funds. We do that in the city level here. You raise, like I was in one campaign 2013, you raise a certain amount of money. The government, the system, the campaign finance board match our funds, so that you can have people.
Dr. Sawaneh,
yeah,
the reality in a developed country is not always the same reality in a developing country. Let us be realistic here. We already have a bloated. Okay, look, we already have a bloated national budget. We are grappling with getting supplementary funds, who are also being brought out by even people who are supposed to, not in my view, not.
But how can we be fair? How can you be? You have a political party, and you have the president who is in government. How can you compete him if we don't give you means of getting also a muscle to stand up to him? That means one party.
Look, I agree in the principle. But in the reality is that where are we going to get funds to give to every political? You know how many political parties we have in Small Gambia at present moment? Those that are registered, we have 19. In a Gambia like ours, if I was going to make a decision on electoral reforms, I would just consider 2 parties, and then parties will go to primary like it is in the US.
Let's do 2-party system.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. At least it's easier. It's easier to provide a little fund to an opposing party, so that they can also try. But if you have 90 political parties, they all apply for money from government. How can you provide that?
Then you have to go back to the drawing board, and this is the time to do it.
I agree.
Because I'm just saying, political party
and the IEC chairman during national dialogue, when he was asked how many political parties are there, he rose up and said, in fact, no, he wasn't asked. He just heard the president mention 19 political parties, and he rose up and said, yes, at the moment, but there are a lot of others who have applied, who have been considered. You have 19 and you still have others applying. And I know that there are some I know, who are here, who were there during the dialogue, who said that they are already independent candidates who are now going to bring up their parties. They have about 10 or 15 independent candidates. So where are we going to? So in my view, I think the truth is, if it works out in the future, we need to streamline all these parties into primaries, into 2 independent parties, opposing parties. Because if you are going to talk about the 50 plus to win, like it is in the US and in other countries, we say, okay, 50 plus to win, we can only have 1 party here, 1 party here, and an independent party. So 1 party here, why? Because we have a party that is going to stand on one side and the other party on the other side. Now, everybody who wants to aspire to be the leader should be doing the primaries on that one, like it is done in the US, where you have the Republican and the Democratic, so that you all do your primaries. And then once you get your own leader, now these 2 leaders now will do their campaign, and then, get to rule. In a country like ours, I think that is the best option. That is the view. And that's my personal view. But otherwise, look, the amount of resources going into this is huge.
I agree, because it's not fair for somebody to be in an election when they don't have a muscle standing up against, like you put in a little kid in a boxing field with Famara. What is how is that fight going to be won? So there's no sense to do that. Either we revamp. I said this years ago, and have two strong political party. If anybody want leadership, walk towards the ranks, just like how it is done here in the West.
Yes.
That makes so
Yes.
much sense. And
It
otherwise,
makes more sense for African countries.
otherwise, the Gambian government take all their resources and distribute it across the board for every political party to have at least something to
And
run.
that is not going to happen. That's not going to happen because those resources are not available. And naturally, what we are doing is we are going to make it easy for the most stronger party to win.
Yeah,
this is
so
why it was never
the
easy
president
to
last
in the past. You know that.
Last campaign, the president gave each one a security, but that's not enough. I want you to give each party a vehicle, each party whatever you have, so it's a share fairly, so that
And
we
you take it from
all go.
taxpayers' money. And you take it from taxpayers' money. And those people cannot criticize anybody else because they are using taxpayers' money now. And then, and then maybe if they lose, they will probably keep the vehicle. Who will want to use that vehicle after that? So you see, I'm just telling that there is no perfect system, Dr. Sawaneh.
So our electoral reform need to be revamped, and we come together as nation.
I agree.
For 2006 and get something done. But before I let Famara comes, one more thing that I didn't hear is corruption. And then accountability, financial accountability, because United States has declared that Gambia is one of, Gambian government is not financially responsible years ago, like 2 or 1 year ago. So what is it what was being brought after putting all these political parties together? I didn't hear yet the big elephant in the room, which is corruption. What has been said about corruption? Maybe I haven't heard it, but you guys were there.
Well, I have to say that almost every other person who stood and took the platform did confess that corruption is one of the issues that should be given focus on. I'm sure if you read the news, you will understand that it is even people who are within government admit that corruption is there. Now, the issue of corruption, and this I'm speaking from one personal perspective, as I said, is that I have done my own analysis of what corruption is. And I have even done some classes, some lectures to some national, local government authorities, explaining to them what is the concept of corruption. Look at corruption and look at culture. We have some of these things that might in such a way that sometimes you cannot define one and leave the other. Let me give you an example. Dr. Sawaneh is in the position of power. Let's say he is the guy who is at the Ministry of Higher Education. And my son gets a scholarship from the ministry without my involvement. And I feel so happy and so proud about it. And I come and see Dr. Sawaneh. I say, who is the one responsible there? They say it's Dr. Sawaneh. I come to Dr. Sawaneh. I say, oh, Dr. Sawaneh, I'm so happy. Wallahi. And then there is something I can do, which I decide to do in your favor, just to please you, because in our culture, it's a show of gratitude. Is that corruption? Anybody will tell you no. And naturally, the definition of corruption is no. That is probably not corruption. But that's where corruption begins. Because then if I do that favor to you, which is part of our culture of showing, expressing appreciation, if tomorrow I come back to you and say, hey, I have a problem, can you help me? The chances are, if you feel that you can be dependent on that kind of favor again, you might accept to help me because you anticipate that favor to come back. So you see what I'm talking about? So what I'm saying is that sometimes corruption is part of the system, but it is not seen as corruption. It's seen as what we call expression of gratitude. Because we realize, even in our deen, they said, whoever does something good to you is not doing it in his own right. He's doing it because Allah wants you to get that good. And therefore, show of gratitude is a way of appreciating God. I'm sure we all know that, right? But how do you show gratitude? You can show it in different formats. You can offer somebody a gift. You can offer to do something for him, a kind of a work. There are many forms. Now, whatever form you do it, at the level of secular state, at the level of governance, they will tell you are corrupting the official. At the level of your culture, your religion, you're expressing gratitude because he's a good guy. He has done something good, but he is doing it because Allah passes it through him. And by saying thank you to him in many other ways, not only by the mouth, but even providing support and all that, then you are showing gratitude to God. So you see, these are some of the things which are so thin lines in between that they need to be well defined. Yes, if you want to provide corruption, we have the Anti-Corruption Commission now almost to become a law. Once it is a law, maybe the Anti-Corruption Commission must sit down and clearly define every act of corruption, whether it's patronage, whether it's nepotism, whether it's whatever form of corruption, or provided gifts to public officials, or any other person. If all of these are well defined, clearly defined, and demarcated, taking our culture into perspective, maybe then it will be easier to say, yes, we can now use this as our yardstick to now sensitize the people and eventually fight corruption.
Okay. But what I'm coming here before Safiaru and the Famara comes in. The reason why I'm so worried about this whole national dialogue without emphasis on corruption is that is the big elephant in the room. I mean, like if you look at corruption, we're not. I know, Dr. Barry, you wanted to make it like corruption is also something else that is cultural, which is fine. But what we are looking at Gambian corruption is different. We're talking about embezzlements of funds, people coming to office within 1 year, they're building mansion, people are driving expensive cars,
I agree.
questionable financial muscles being shown.
Source of funding.
Somebody who is in America, he couldn't have a job, go to Gambia, has a mansion within 2 years. So that means something is happening. That money is coming from somewhere. It's not falling from the trees. Now, Marabito came to the Gambia during when this government came into power. He was sitting with the president and said, and tried to talk to the president about corruption, how to fight corruption. The response I got from the president was that we are not there yet. How couldn't you be not being there yet? Because that's the first thing we fought for when we sent Drammeh out. Not only political freedom to be able to speak and we have a freedom, but we want financial responsibility, physical responsibility. So I think the reason why some of these reforms haven't been taking place is to give that luxury. Right now, Senegambia Bridge, we're talking about Thailand Senegambian Bridge. You heard about that. And other resources. Soon it will be Gamtel. Soon it will be other things. The government is selling those things in order to sustain, support, financial support. Look at the budget. Even the National Assembly, the budget for them, the National Assembly has even become corrupted because of some of the things they are asking, their clothing, their loans, and all of that. And now the vehicles. So Gambia, if you say you are not seeing corruption in all levels, you kidding. We all, it's just we all keeping blind eyes to it. And if we don't fight that, and collect the right taxes, and I'm sure you guys also discuss about taxes, because taxes alone, even without human resources, even without natural resources, taxes alone, if it is properly managed and collected, Gambia can sustain and become, a developed nation. Because if you look at Kenya's resources are not, abundant. Kenya came together, just like how we are coming together now, and sit down and become patriotic about their country and become creative, using taxes as one of the key measures to lift up their nation. So I kind of like all the great things that you guys discussed, but there are key elements that I haven't had. Maybe it was discussed, but it was not surfaced here in our discussion. Those two are corruption and taxes. And if taxes are collected, they have to be shown where they are put into, not like put in somebody's pocket. So that's why, corruption and accountability, they are key. And it has to be from top down, not from bottom up, because the top has the muscles. So that's one key area that I think we need to really look into. But I will allow Famara and Sophia to come in. Dr. Buddy, if you wouldn't mind. But I like the thematic.
No, it's okay.
Yeah, the thematic areas that you guys look at, which is you talked about political thing. Political, political system in Gambia, I mean, I don't think that's big deal. I mean, religion is okay, but religious also is not really, it's really, I mean, we cannot really untribal. I mean, ethnical, this thing. Those are things that we have to we sensitize each other, like we do shows here. We sensitize people. We try to promote that. But I think the key area, this illegal immigration is key. I mean, media safeguarding, of course, is also very key, and security. So I think, I like chemical areas that they put out, the sixth one, but I want us to put more emphasis on, corruption as well, and then and also the taxes area. So those are the things that I want to add, and in case you guys have a time to actually bring those up in another discussion. Yeah, but I will allow them to comment if Famara has the question, or if Sophia is
Absolutely, Dr. Sawaneh, very brilliant analysis there. I think our taxes, sometimes when I hear GRA collected these billions of dollars in a year, sometimes I wonder how those billions are spent. If we can get a breakdown of where they spend too, that could give us we could track to see how the money is being spent. But that's very important. And then corruption, of course, you said, is very important as well, because if we don't fight corruption and then take a good stand in fighting corruption, and obviously all the revenue we are getting, and of course even the money coming from development partners, will all slip away. And at the end of the day, we will not see any meaningful progress. But like Professor Barry said, I also recognize this dialogue is very, very important. And we thank the president for, initiating this, because no matter what, it's an opportunity for everybody to say whatever you want to say to the government that you think is not working, whatever advice you have for the president. So if the president called for a dialogue, I think we should all go there and listen and talk and express our views freely. It's an opportunity. Honestly, it is an opportunity to talk to the president, So I think this is a step in the right direction. And like Xavier said, I believe once we put all these recommendations together, hopefully, even if the government don't have the finance to, to sponsor some of the recommendation or to finance some of the recommendation, the development partners are listening and they want to come in. European Union is one of the biggest development partners to the Gambia government. So if there is something that we need to do and we don't have the resources for it, obviously, I'm sure if we knock at the door of the development partners, they will help in, especially when it comes to governance, when it comes to security issue, when it comes to this illegal migration, which European Union is putting a lot of resources into, to cope the situation, because even in Europe now, things are not easy. So when people come to their country, they are also spending a lot of money to try to, take care of those migrants, because it's an obligation on them. It's an international obligation on them. So they are always willing to help those states that are able to, to stop or reduce this illegal migration. So if the government can fund it, I'm sure the EU will not hesitate to come in and support, definitely. So that's very important. Tax corruption, and then also the electoral reforms. And Professor Barry mentioned about, politicians or political parties to declare. I think that's very, very important as well, so that we don't get people to be financing political parties maybe because of their own interest. For political parties to declare their sources of financing. That's very key, and that will be something, if implemented, will be very good, because some people might wonder where President Barrow is building all these MPP offices across the region. Where do the MPP have money? Who is supporting them? Is it from the central government, or is it from other sources of funding, or is it from party membership, subscription fees, or whatever? So people might question all that. So if we have those kind of reforms in place, I think it will go a long way, in electoral, reforms in the Gambia. So I think this, and let's see what the outcome of the thing is going to be. But I think it's a good start. At least we'll have a framework in place, that highlighted based on these thematic areas, and then I think it will be a good start, obviously. So since it's going to be an annual something that will continue, because I had the president mention about it. So to have the template or the structure in place is a first step. Then maybe hopefully, it will build up as we go along, and then make things better, so that if people can have free political environment in our country, we can all focus on national development, and address the key issues that affects the development of our country. So I think that's very important, because right now what we are seeing is not very healthy between politicians themselves and their surrogates, calling out each other and then, saying those kind of things. It's not helping us at all. So I think this will be a step in the right direction towards that, achieving that national development. Yeah, so thank you so much. I'm gonna take a look of you guys, because I'll be leaving shortly to go to work. But then I think it's a very good thing. Thank you, Xavier.
Thank you. But just to recall on something, the recommendations are still open, because our team had an email that they actually announced on the day of the event, that if you have any more recommendation, you can send it through. I guess after the program, doctor will communicate that to the public, because corruption and an aspect of corruption is very, very important for us to capture it. I've seen the point of Sawaneh is something key in the development of our country, and it's been exempted in this dialogue, because I don't see anything related to it. So it will be very good. We consider that aspect. Though all these 6 thematic sites are very, very good. They are really real issues that Gambians are going through. And I hope that Allah guide our president and increase him in knowledge and wisdom, so that he will accept this recommendation that will come from different areas and implement them in the interest of the Gambians.
Right. Thank you for that. We're gonna wrap this up soon, but what I wanna highlight here, Dr. Barry and Safiatu and Famara, is that this is the beginning. I'm pretty sure they are not gonna be able to complete all of this. All what has been discussed, because it's a lot. Okay, you cannot, what we are Gambians, what we are good at is like I said, trying to attack things, a lot of things at the same time. It's better if they can really look at what, look at quarterly what can be attained or
what is possible as of now.
Say that again.
I said, what is possible as of now?
Exactly. Do it quarterly. Let's say, because you cannot, we have 1 year to come back, and I'm pretty sure consultation will be going on, and these new ideas, like what we're talking about, taxes and other things, will be coming in, because everything couldn't have been discussed at that point. But institutional review is another key. Reform sector, everything, security reform, all those reforms that were spoken of, they need to be implemented ASAP. Those are key. So, and then why is what I don't understand? Why is diaspora not included in this? Just because we are physically not there, doesn't mean we shouldn't be included.
Oh no, correction. You were included. For example, in group 4, we invited Professor Sen of the Nyang Sane Institute, who delved into the definition of states and the question of sovereignty. In fact, and let me just share this. It's very important. Very interesting. He said, states, when you define state itself, it's very difficult because it's very complex. State means a country that is perfectly independent on its own, that is running its own resources, etc. All that. That is a state. I mean, the assumption is that it is already complete on its own, running it is on its own. And he made a comparison now with Gambia and other African states. The other thing is about sovereignty. He said, how sovereign are we? Because it does also brings the question of independence. How sovereign? When you say you are a sovereign state, it means you are a country that is fully independent, depending on your own resources, on your own efforts. Like South Korea can say they are a sovereign state. Singapore can say the same, because they are developing now using their own resources, whether it's human whether it's technical, whatever, to develop themselves. So that is their resource. And said that can we say the same for Africa and Gambia in particular? So yes, we did have members of the diaspora, not many of them do, like Professor Abdullah Sen was there.
Okay, maybe it was not extensively been and I don't know like how the reach out has been, but I'm not saying that like I wasn't aware of it and none of my colleagues were. So I'm saying that all those things Professor Say might have the connections or whatever, but what I'm saying is that that's why need to be tapped into this national discussion as it goes along. Maybe that's something that could be occurred as you go along. And secondly, also I wanted to also buttress in this national dialogue, right? Are you guys how is it measured? I know I had somebody was saying media could measure it, and other measure. We want it to be the measurement to be correct. Each area to be really vetted by independent, not in governmental or any or opposition party. You need to have a vetting committee that would use the right tools to make sure that this thing has passed, the threshold. So all that thing has to be done, and it has to be, like I said, we have to have a database. Government has to have a database where I can click on it and go and learn myself what is going on in my country. If that is not there, we still are not sovereign. We still are not independent because we don't have access to information. So that is one thing.
Yeah, I'm a strong believer. I'm a strong believer of what you said. The issue of the post dialogue now and going forward, we are yet to meet because we are going to do a post-mortem, of the whole program. As I said, this is recommended now strongly to be institutionalized, meaning that it might end up having a desk office where, there is going to be monitoring. And as you rightly said, this is going to be monitored by the civil society. They are involved already. If you look at the constitution of the National Preparatory Committee, 98% were from civil society. In fact, the only two people who came from government are the permanent secretary, Minister of Fisheries, Buba Sanyang, and Ami Bojang Sisoko. Apart from the chair and the secretary of cabinet, these are the only four people. Yeah. All the others came from civil society, like the National Youth Council, Tango, the Christian Council, the Supreme Islamic Council, the Gambia Women, the Young Riders Association, which is represented by Safiatu, Gender Action Team, the National Civic Education, the Network on Gender-Based Violence, the University of the Gambia. So we have really people who came or representatives who came from practically all the outside party, including inter-party committee.
Are they vetted? Like they are non-partisan? Are they vetted, impartial?
Yeah, these are people who were recommended by their institutions. No, these are people who have been vetted, recommended by their institutions, selected by them to come and join the team and help in the preparation. Now, whether they are vetted to be partisan politicians is difficult to say. Look, all of us have our politics in our own way. But the way we have worked did not show, really, that we were there because we were NPP or we were there because we were UDP. It didn't show, to be honest. You have heard John Jai when he spoke. You should listen to him when he spoke at the opening of the political party congress. That was a beautiful statement. So he spoke on, because his statement, I was part of those who listened and prepared the statement. Not directly, but we all discussed the content of the statement and how he should approach matters. And then he spoke, really, he crafted the words to our liking. All of us were happy that he spoke what we wanted to say. So there was no back scratching there. President Barrow was seated. But we said clearly that these things are not working the way they were, and there's a problem. So therefore, the national dialogue is a good start to discuss issues, to find a way forward, and see how best things can be supported.
Very good, very good. Okay, so those are the areas. If we can work on quarterly and then have a timeline for everything, and then what is expected of deliveries and so forth. Because the reason why I'm saying that is because we are good at putting out ideas, but accountability and implementation is our problem since the get-go. So
I agree. I agree.
we have
You are
to
talking to a civil servant who has been there implementing programs, and I know what that means.
Very good, very good. So that being said, I mean, we definitely have been on for a little bit. So I will just allow you to summarize, you and Sophia too, about this whole thing for our viewers, and then of course Famara and I, we already have asked a lot of questions already, and I believe that we have, definitely went in depth in this, and perhaps like our viewers who are watching this will definitely benefit from this, and those who are watching later. Yeah. But definitely, I will give you the floor to starting with Safiato, and then Dr. Barry, you can conclude.
Well, I want Gambians to fully participate in this idea of our president, and I commend him for it. Part of also
I
the
also commend the
preparatory,
president for
yes,
I
part of
should have mentioned that
the
earlier. Yeah.
preparatory team, their energy, strength that they had played into making sure that everything is in order is really amazing. And again, the government of the Gambia, I believe, we are all imperfect. And looking up to the system that we have, we all have to come as citizens to help them when it comes to national interest. So boycotting certain discussions, I don't believe in such things. I believe when you have love and an affection towards your country, you have been called to come and participate in this kind of a gathering that happens once in a blue moon, that is once in a year. I guess you should be the first person to come forward and open up to the Gambians, because this is not only about the president and what he's going to achieve, but it's about us. So it is us who can change the system. That's the message I want to send across to the Gambian people, that in anything that you are in for, look into the interests of the people, not just personally what you have with the individual. Once it's about nationalism. So thank you so much for the invitation, and alhamdulillah, I pray that Allah make it easy for you and your platform also. I've been following, and I pray that Allah grant us the ability and will to be here often to discuss with the people of the Gambia.
Thank you, Safiato. You are an inspiration to many young folks out there, especially ladies. And then seeing you coming up, as a writer, and being that Dr. Barry and myself, we also write, is an inspiration to see younger generation coming up and doing the same thing, or even going beyond us. So thank you for thank you, and thank for being part of this. Dr. Barry.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Sawaneh.
Yeah, well, one more thing I was gonna say, Dr. Barry, please do also add to your notes, national, to have a curriculum, or kind of like national patriotism to be nurtured and then taught in school at an early age is very important, because that has helped this country and other nations. Once you have that connection to your nation at the early stage, it helps you safeguard the interests of the nation, even if you take over any kind of office. So I want to add that to the list of things, that if that has not been discussed as well, let them have curriculums, let them have, let them put it in the national agenda when it comes to education. Patriotism and love of oneself and country is Gambia lacks that.
Thank you very much. First of all, you're speaking my mind. But most importantly, you're also echoing the words of Hadi Fasala. That's exactly what he said when he took the platform on the 12th. So you see, everybody is thinking alike. So in a way, this is where I have to really look. We are commending Adama Barrow, not because he's the politician and head of NPP, but because he has got the willingness to see this whole nation become one family. Look, his act can only be an act of a good Muslim, or if you want to call it a Christian, anybody. But for me, I call it an act of a good Muslim. Why? Because he's saying, look, let's come together. You see, we can interpret it any way we want it, whether it's going to be a political move or whatever. But let us be sincere and honest. Anybody who does this, irrespective of their religion, irrespective of their tribe, irrespective of where they come from or their color, It must be appreciated. Somebody is telling you that let's sit down and discuss. You are open to tell me what you feel, what you want. You know, whether he's going to do it or not, that's a good beginning. Now, how he's going to do it later would all depend on what he has, whether he's got the resources, whether he's got the resources here is what human, financial, technical, etc. But then we are hoping that it happens. Remember, there are governments in which they will one day be in government. And hopefully they will also realize that being in government and implementing things are not as easy as one would be doing it when you're outside. It's like you and me when we are watching football. Every time somebody kicks the ball and he goes out, say, look at this idiot. Look at where he's going to kick the ball out.
You should have kicked it this
Can
way.
we do better than the person? Can we do better than the person? When we are in the field, we cannot. But we always assume in our own comfort zone that what he's doing is wrong because he should have kicked it right in the net. He has wasted our time. He's lost the ball. He's done this and that. We don't know what is his own physical capacity at that moment. Yeah. We don't know his strenuous efforts he's got at that moment. We don't know what pains he's undergoing at that moment. So he has challenges maybe, and he could only have done his best by kicking a ball that unfortunately didn't go into the net. So what we are saying is, we wish, and I will tell you, I have had the privilege of discussing with Barrow, you know, in fora and all that. Look, if it is the individual, I'm not talking of the party now. If it is the individual that I know, I think he's sincere and he's willing to help. And this is no political discussion whatsoever. He is sincere and he's willing to develop the country. He's sincere. But then look, he has inherited problems. We should all admit to that. And these problems, he needs support, he needs help. He needs probably all of us there. He needs you. He needs all of us. So he's calling the national dialogue. He felt there is a part of the population that is not involved. He said, look, all of that other part that is not involved, come again, join me, let us be together, let us discuss, let us find a way forward. I might not have all the answers. I might not be able to do it all, but I will listen. And when I listen, I will see what we can do. That much I can tell you because I was part of the National Preparatory Committee, and I know that there is a genuine intention of seeing that the recommendations that are made are pushed. Yes, if some are delayed, there is a good reason. Yes, should it be more transparent for people to know why? Probably yes, I recommend that too. So there are a lot of things that need improving. And in some ways, you have to understand that we want governments that are transparent. But we all know that there is absolutely no government that is 100% transparent. Because for you who is in the US, you know very well that even in America, America quoted certain information. What would they say? For security reasons. Because sometimes, depending on who you address, who you talk to, there is certain information you don't want to divulge all the time. What it will only create is more debate, more confusion, more animosity, and more misunderstanding. So sometimes when information is not all divulged, and here I'm talking to you as an individual, even in my own family, I know even in my own family, I will not tell you everything about my family. I can tell you as much as I want you to know. Why? Even if you were my neighbor, you don't have to know everything about me. So what I'm just driving at is, the state is ours. The government is ours. There are a lot of things that everybody has a share into. But when you are in the position of power, you therefore realize completely that steering the ship or driving the car is not as easy as you see when you sit down near the driver and the driver is driving it the way he's doing it. You see, there are things you need to master. There are things you need to do. There are a lot of other implications. What am I saying too? I watched the Independence from Home today, and I saw for the first time all these former vice presidents sitting down, from Bibi Dabo, from Aïssatou Ndiaye Seydi, Fatoumata Diallo Tambanya, and also Dr. Aïssatou Touré. And you find even the former First Lady, Lady Chiller, there. You find former ministers there, former senior government officials there. So there's a reconciliation going on. That doesn't mean that everybody support NPP. What it means is that everybody is taking a national activity to heart, a national call to heart, a national forum as ours. And I think this is the way we should be thinking, and this is the only way we can help government to work. Yes, we are watchdogs of government as civil society. Yes, we are watchdogs of government as opposition political parties. But look, if government does good, it is also fair enough to say you have done a good job. And where you don't do good, we will say, look, we think you can do better this way. So I think this is the dialogue we should nurture. This is the conversation we should promote. It's not a conversation of we can do better than you, so get out. No, this is not the issue. No one can guarantee doing better than this sitting president until they sit as a government. No one can guarantee it. So we all know.
Yeah.
So let us be honest and sincere. Let's open the dialogue. Let's create that unity. Let's create a conducive environment where everybody feels happy and free and open and willing to speak out and talk about issues without being disagreeable, talk about issues without being dishonest about it, talk about issues without creating rift and confusion, so that together we listen to each other. And by listening to each other, we learn from each other, we help each other, and make a much better Gambia tomorrow. I think this is possible, but we should change our mindset, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Doctor. I hope, you know, we meet up here again, discussing the quarterly, maybe quarterly suggestion that I made, or maybe others made. And of course, one more thing that I forgot to mention was the TRRC recommendation, which is, I don't know whether it was discussed at some point. Like I said, I didn't follow the whole story, but
yes, even in my group, it was made a recommendation, and the political environment also made a recommendation. Yes.
Okay, so
I mentioned it earlier when I started talking.
Okay, TRRC, yeah. So those are things that, you know, and the constitutional review. But again, we will follow up. Since this is gonna be like, you guys gonna be engaging you know, this process the whole time, and then by next year also you guys will meet up. So I think, you know, it's a good discussion to have. So maybe in a quarterly we can probably invite you and see how much, you know, things has changed, or what are the, you know, reports or whatever that you guys could feed the public. But again, thank you so much for coming. I mean, we couldn't have done this without you. I mean, thank you for your time.
Thank you very much indeed.
This is more important than anything we can think of. And we also, again, we thank the government, the president, for having to spearhead this idea.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sawaneh.
Take care.
Thank you. Have a wonderful day.
And thank you, Safia.
Assalamu
alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.